so we looked at carbs, we've looked at proteins, we've looked at our carbohydrate is 45 to 65. And proteins was 10 to 35, right? I really struggle with that. I don't like that 35, guys. That's way too much protein for your kidneys to deal with. Fats, less than or equal to 30%. And 10% less than 10% saturated. All right, so we'll talk about that idea. If you like the grams per day, less than 65 grams per day of fat, I think this percentage idea is easier, just to eyeball what you eat across the week. Carbohydrate for most of us wants to be 50 to 55. Okay, that top end is for endurance athletes, mostly. If you're in a very high volume section of your training program and you're doing weights, you might want to get up there. But for most of us, 65 is way more than we're going to want. Same with this protein. Again, around 15 for the majority of us. This top end is for strength athletes, shot put, weight trainer, Olympic lifter. So don't get too involved with this 35, I think. That's pretty high. And then 30. So you've got to play around with these numbers, because obviously you can't be at the top end for all the different nutrients. So make sure that you're looking at the whole picture here. We don't want our less than 30% to be 0%, 5%, right? We're not looking at no fat, okay? We need fats. Most of our membranes are double lipid layers. So if you remember back to biology, if I need a double lipid membrane, I would need fat in order to mend or build that membrane, right? Steroid hormones have a precursor from fats. So in order to make testosterone, then I've got to have some fat in my diet. We know that energy-wise, triglyceride has way more energy than protein or carb. Protein and carbs are 4 kilocalories per gram. Fats are 9 kilocalories per gram, so a very good source of energy. And so those triglycerides, if they're floating in the bloodstream, get absorbed and stored in fat cells and also in the muscle tissue, as well as some other tissues. But if you think about, what does muscle look like? We've got streaks of fat in a steak or on a chicken breast, as well as in the actual fat cells, right? And the enzyme that plays a role in breaking down the triglyceride when we want to use it for energy is lipase, so that's nice and easy. Remember, ASE means it's an enzyme. Fats are lipids, it's a technical term, so lipase is going to facilitate, not cause, facilitate the breakdown of stored triglycerides so that we can use them to make energy. Okay? It frees up. We don't use the triglyceride directly, we use a free fatty acid. So it releases the free fatty acid from the molecule. All right? And our fatty acids are our major source of food to make ATP when you're at rest, like this, when you're asleep. If you're doing very low intensity work, so if you're just strolling and not walking very quickly, you're more likely to be using fat as your energy source than carbohydrate. Think about our crossover graphs that we did earlier in the semester, right? And don't get confused by the fact that I can do low intensity work and use fat as my energy source, because you're not doing enough work for it to be a weight loss tool. Right? So you want to think about our fat max zone. Where do I need my heart rate to be to utilize the most amount of fat as an energy source while I'm exercising at a high enough level to use a lot of calories? Right? If that's the goal, to lose fat mass, this is not going to do it, even though this uses fat. Right? So I've got to get that balance between how much work am I doing and at what point do I use more carbohydrate and not fat. Right? So think about placing the intensity at the right level. Okay. Fats have lots of carbons in them, and that's why we can get lots of energy out of them, because they turn, Krebs cycle, and we release lots of hydrogen for our electron transport chain to make tons of ATP. So, one of the issues, though, that we've got to be careful of is that just a moderate amount of fat mass gain increases blood pressure and cardiovascular risk factors. So again, we've got to be really careful how we use this idea. We want to, sorry, Cara.
I heard you just close and I was like, cool.
There was too much noise out there. All right? So moderate weight gain that's due to fat mass rather than muscle mass increases coronary artery and cardiovascular disease risk, increases blood pressure, and may increase the risk of some types of cancer. And so when you're looking at your fat intake in your diet, you want to try to distinguish between fats that are unsaturated and fats that are saturated. So the unsaturated ones are kind of good fat. Doesn't mean you can have more than 30% of them, right? Just because they're less problematical than the saturated. Right? Unsaturated fats will be either monosaturated or polyunsaturated. So monos are olive oil, really good to cook with olive oil. Avocados, a great source of healthy fat. Polyunsaturated nuts, seeds, sesame oil, sunflower oil, things like that. Also, you want to look at omega-3s and omega-6 fatty acids. The body can't make those. And there's a lot of research that links omega-3 and omega-6 with decreased risk of cardiovascular disease and certain cancers. So unsaturated fats tend to lean themselves towards decreasing cancer risk in a lot of the research. Saturated fats are the real bad guy in most of the literature, and those are the ones that are found in animal food sources. So everybody suggests that we eat more lean meats, chicken, fish, so that we decrease our intake of saturated fats in red meats. There's some confusion when you look at the literature on red meat, because typically people who eat a lot of red meat have high calorie consumption. So it's very difficult when you look at that literature to tease out whether it's the red meat that's the culprit or the high calorie intake that's the culprit, right? So I would say there's nothing to suggest you shouldn't eat red meat. You might not want to eat it every day of the week, all right? I'm not a proponent of cutting anything out of your diet. Eat anything you want in moderation. Just don't eat it all the time, right? Because cutting anything out, A, just makes you want to cheat like crazy anyway, and B, there's no reason. If you follow the ratio, you can fit anything in there. I'm not giving up my regular ice cream. I'm not eating froyo. I'm eating ice cream. Right? Now, which ice cream? That's right. If there's things on there that I can't read, I'm not eating it. Ice cream should be eggs, cream, sugar, coffee, strawberries, right? Whatever I'm putting in flavoring. If it's got FD 659, right? I'm not eating that because that's not ice cream. Right? So, same goes for red meat. There's nothing wrong with red meat in moderation. Right now, that's the picture. Okay? Saturated fats generally seem to be linked with particular types of cancer, breast cancer, colon cancer, possibly prostate cancer, higher cardiovascular risk because of plaque buildup that we looked at in the arteries. So just keep it down, less than 10%. Not 0, just lower than my unsaturated. So lots of fish, particularly salmon, trout, fatty fishes. Okay. Very, very good for decreasing cardiovascular risk. Nuts, good source. So just make good choices. We're not looking at 0. Your intake can be too low. So if you know people that have eating disorders, if you've ever met anyone that has an eating disorder, particularly if they're anorexic, they tend to cut fat out completely. That's not healthy at all. It's very hard to support your immune system on a very, very low fat diet. Makes your hair go brittle and dull. I knew someone that was anorexic that could peel her nails, literally peel her nails. Right? So that's not supposed to happen. All right. So we need fat in our diet. We just have to be careful how we approach that and make sensible choices. Right? It's not a question of none. Also, if you go back to this idea that we need fats in order to produce testosterone, then there's some literature out there that says that people on very, very low fat diets tend to lose muscle mass because they don't produce enough testosterone. So the suggestion for strength athletes is that they should be eating somewhere around 15 to 20% of their diet, because they need lots of testosterone to maintain muscle mass or build muscles. Right? So you don't want to go below 15 to 20% as a strength athlete. So, high-fat diets. Then, high-fat diet, anything 55 to 85%. Right? It's considerably higher than what is considered healthy. If I'm eating 55, 60, 65% fat, then somewhere here is going down the pan. Right? So then I'm not eating a healthy, balanced diet. The people that say, oh, high-fat diets are a good idea because they might improve endurance performance, because we will adapt to eat into the high-fat diet, and therefore our body will use more fat as an energy source, and that will spare the glycogen in the muscle and the liver. That's the argument, okay? This is not my area of expertise. I know what I believe, but that's not always based upon the research that I've read, right? There is some indication that your body will adapt. If you're doing ultra marathons and you're running for 24 hours a day, then if I can use more fat as an energy source, that would be probably very beneficial, right? But everybody's individual. Some people will not tolerate a high-fat diet, right? It will give them gastrointestinal distress. Some people do not tolerate, if I'm having a high-fat diet, chances are I'm not eating 25-30% protein, because you feel quite full when you eat fat, even though that doesn't last for a long time. At the time you're eating it, it fills you up. You get satiated very quickly. So chances are your protein is not very high. Right? And so mostly you're going to be eating a low-carb diet. Some people don't tolerate a low-carb diet. If your blood glucose levels, if you're very sensitive to your blood glucose levels, then you may not be able to eat 30-35% carbohydrate diet and get away with that and train. Okay? Everybody's an individual. So I would be still, even if there's a performance benefit, I'm not sure that it outweighs the risk to health, because the health connection is clear in the literature. High-fat diets are far more risky health-wise. So if I lose my ultra-marathon by 5 seconds, but I live an extra 10 years, was it worth coming in second? I don't know. I mean, only that individual can make that choice. There's some very odd choices made in order to win gold medals at World Championships and Olympics. Right? People do some very silly things to their body in order to win a gold medal. So maybe winning is all that matters. But short-term studies, so it takes time for your body to start to adapt to use a little more fat. And so when you look at studies that are only a couple of days long and they pile this high-fat diet into this individual, all you see is really, really bad impacts on performance. Okay? Once you start looking at studies that go on for more than a week, and usually you're looking at several weeks to see the kind of adaptation where eating a high-fat diet would really improve performance. You start to get some mixed results after a week. But if I'm working at high intensities. So if I'm going to work at 85% intensity, then I'm not going to use fat anyway. So you really are looking at some insane endurance performance, in my view, to see improvement. I mean, if I'm running for 24 hours, I'm not running at 85–90% intensity. Right? It doesn't matter how good you are. I'm pretty sure you're not running at 85% intensity for 24 hours. Right? So perhaps a high-fat diet might help out. But if I'm running a marathon in 2 hours, I'm running really fast. A high-fat diet isn't going to help. I don't see anything that suggests it would. Plus, you have a health risk, so why do it? Okay, so proteins, carbs, fats. Group number 4 is vitamins. And our vitamin intake, we've got to look at fat-soluble versus water-soluble, and they're literally what they are made of. Right? If they're fat-soluble, they dissolve in fat, therefore I can store them, because even if I'm very lean, I have plenty of fat cells. So fat-soluble vitamins are storable, ADEK. That means that you have to be a little bit careful about taking too much of them in, because you can build up a toxic level if you were taking ridiculous amounts. It's very difficult to be deficient in vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E, vitamin K. There are some populations around the world that show vitamin D deficiency because they have very poor nutrition. There's a little bit of argument that because we now really support the use of sunscreen and promote the use of sunscreen, that we may see lower vitamin D levels in individuals where we typically would have seen high, because our body synthesizes vitamin D in response to sunlight. So if I'm blocking the sunlight, then we might see some lower levels of vitamin D. Vitamin D impacts calcium uptake to the bones. So you might need to look at a supplement as an older individual, particularly a female. The water-soluble vitamins dissolve in water, therefore we can't store them because we pass water out of the body all the time. And that means we have to take them in our diet on a regular basis. All right? It's very difficult to reach toxicity with a water-soluble vitamin. You can do it with vitamin C and vitamin B if you take heaps and heaps and heaps and heaps of them, but it's hard. Right? You really, really have to take massive doses to reach a level of toxicity. So B and C are both water-soluble. We have to make sure we take them on a regular basis. What do we know about vitamins and performance? Not a lot, unfortunately. We have some information on a couple of the vitamin groups. We don't have information across the whole spectrum. We know that vitamin C is important in immune function, and it acts as an antioxidant. So when we exercise, we create free radicals in our body, which are not good for us. They do cell damage and all kinds of negative impacts at the cellular level. And so vitamin C helps counteract free radicals that are floating around in the body. So they might help us with this oxidative stress, these free radicals. There's some argument that they help with fatigue and muscle injury. Generally, it's thought that taking vitamin C won't stop you catching a cold, but if you have a cold, you might respond faster and kind of get over it a little bit quicker if you take vitamin C. And possibly muscle soreness, DOMS, that delayed onset muscle soreness that we talked about, because a lot of that muscle soreness is due to these free radicals and things that are floating around in the cell that are irritants and doing damage at the cellular level. There's no literature that supports an improved performance because of vitamin C. Right? We might see improved recovery. We do not see any change in performance. Right? So actual performance is not affected, assuming you've got enough. Right? Vitamin E, and these statements are all assuming that you've got adequate levels of vitamins in your diet. Right? Vitamin E, also an antioxidant. So again, it might help with muscle damage. It may help with recovery, making sure that you've got enough vitamin E in your diet, because it may counteract free radical damage. The research suggests that if we exercise, we might have more vitamin E stored in the muscle, which is where we would need it to help in recovery. So that's a logical result to see in the literature, but there's not a lot of literature that supports that result. Again, absolutely no impact on performance. It's all recovery. It's nothing to do with, if I take vitamin E, I'm going to run faster. No, that's not happening. So when might I want to take supplements then? If I look at my diet, do I need to take vitamin C or vitamin E as a supplement? Endurance athletes appear to be more at risk for upper respiratory infections if they're deficient in vitamin C. So they've looked at people at the end of a marathon, and they seem to be more susceptible to getting an upper respiratory infection the few hours after a marathon than they are at any other time. So maybe that's an argument for upping your vitamin C around the time of a marathon, or at the end of the marathon, making sure that part of your post-race meal is fruits or vegetables that are high in vitamin C. So there seems to be a window of a few hours at the end of an endurance race where you're at more risk of catching or developing a respiratory disease. If you're a smoker, then you're going to be deficient in vitamin C. If you've just had surgery or you've run a fever because you've had flu or something like that, chances are your vitamin C levels are deficient and a supplement would be useful. Women who take oral contraceptives, depending upon the contraceptive, may be deficient in vitamin C and might benefit from taking a supplement. The thing about a vitamin C supplement is that if you've got enough and you can't use it, it's water soluble. You're just going to pee it out. So it's a finance issue more than anything else. Right? Do I want to spend money on a supplement that I'm just peeing down? I might as well just tear my dollar up and throw it down the toilet and flush it, right? Be careful on the amount of vitamin C if you take a supplement. So we're into mega doses of everything. And they sell mega doses of vitamin C, 1 gram, even more than 1 gram. You can't use a gram of vitamin C at any one time. That is a complete waste of your money, right? So if you buy the Energen C packets, great. Only take half the packet at any one time. Because if you take the whole packet won't hurt you, but you won't get any benefit from it, and they're expensive, right? So just take half the packet, double the use that you get from your box, and actually get some use from the vitamin C. Vitamin E helps if you rub it on scar tissue. So if you've had surgery, it does help with that scar tissue. Don't start using it until the scar is healing, though. It's not going to help if you pour it on the scar while it's still fixing. But once you've got some scar tissue, vitamin E can help with the scar tissue. What else on vitamin C and vitamin E, I think? Oh, I know. Immune function. So, if moderation, okay, come back to our idea of moderation. If I'm sedentary, if I don't move very much, then what we see in that population of people is that they tend to be more inclined to be sick. Colds, chest infections. Okay. If we look at athletes who train a lot at high intensity, they also tend to be quite sick. They catch colds, they catch respiratory infections quite a lot. Generally at the worst time possible, right? You're training your butt off, you've got this great competition, you're working really hard, everything's going great, and then 2 days before the competition you start, right, and you get sick. Because you've been training so hard, you impact immune function. Right? So again, we come back to this is what we want, right? People who train at a moderate level on a regular basis tend to have high-functioning immune systems. Right? This is probably due to a stress reaction because exercise is of stress. So if I stress the body a lot, I impact immune function. This one could be I'm not doing enough to support. I don't know. But this is the picture we see. So again, with your athletes, we don't see any improved performance. There's nothing to improve performance. But the suggestion is that we might improve recovery and we may be able to support the immune system a little bit. Okay, so B vitamins. Okay, B vitamins work as a complex, so you B complex. There's several of them. They work together as a group very often, and so if I'm missing just one of them, the whole job that the complex is supposed to do may not be able to occur. For example, vitamin B12 is required to make red blood cells. So if I'm deficient in vitamin B12, we see an impact on aerobic performance in a similar way that we see with anemia, because the red blood cells can't do their job properly. Right? And if I can't get oxygen to the muscle, then I can't produce ATP and performance drops off. So if you're working with an endurance athlete and performance is deteriorating when they're training quite hard and they're not anemic, it could be a B12 deficiency. If you are not deficient, there's no improvement in performance. If you're deficient, though, you're going to see improved performance if you take a B-complex supplement. So you want to be careful with these yeasty things. So if I'm not going to eat whole wheat bread because I'm gluten intolerant, where am I going to get my vitamin D from? Right? How am I going to get that in my diet? Do I need to take a supplement? So, if a deficiency exists, then supplementing vitamins might facilitate performance, particularly if you're looking at B vitamins. If the diet is adequate, if you have a healthy nutritional balance, if you eat plenty of grains and fresh fruits and veg and healthy protein sources, you shouldn't be deficient in any of this, then taking additional probably is not going to make any difference whatsoever. Okay, so do you want to spend your money on it? I take a multivitamin, personally, because I don't grow my own fruits and vegetables, and I don't know how nutritionally valuable the stuff that I buy off the shelf in Walmart is, right? Because I don't know how long it's been in transit, I don't know where it came from. It's not from the local farmer, right? Is it still nutritionally valuable? If I'm growing my own fruits and vegetables, or if I'm buying all my fruits and vegetables and things from a local farmer's market where it was just grown down the road, then maybe I don't need a multivitamin. I can afford it, and I'm not overdosing because I'm not seeing any symptoms of toxicity, so I take one. Doesn't mean you have to, though. There's no research to support taking a multivitamin if your intake is sufficient. What about our minerals? So minerals are our fifth group. Oh, B1 impacts memory performance. So you don't want to be deficient in B1 when you're studying for your exams, right? Calcium. So we've got the obvious is bone mass. Without good calcium in our diets, then we can start to leach calcium out of the bones and decrease bone mass. Right? That's not a good plan because that sets us up for fractures, stress fractures, breaks if we fall, osteoporosis as we get older. So we don't want to have low bone mass when we're younger adults. Right? Also, when did we use calcium earlier in the semester? What's calcium keep? Sorry? Not quite, but it is linked with why we make energy. Where did we see calcium crop up earlier in the semester?
Muscle contraction.
Muscle contraction, right? Remember, all that calcium is stored in the sarcoplasmic reticulum, when we release energy and we've got a signal from the brain, then that calcium allows for muscle contraction. So if I don't have enough of it in my diet, your body will leach it from your bones so that you can see efficient muscle contraction. And most people see the peak in their skeleton density around 30, early 30s, starts to decline, particularly if we're not paying attention to our diet and our exercise status in our 40s and 50s and 60s. Iron, we mentioned already about iron when we looked at the cardiovascular system. Right? Iron sits in a hemoglobin molecule, and it allows hemoglobin to do its job properly by picking up the oxygen and transporting it to the muscle. So if I'm deficient in iron, my hemoglobin and therefore my red blood cells can't do their job properly, and we can't transport oxygen efficiently. Right? So being deficient in iron can have a big impact on performance, particularly if I'm an aerobic athlete. We do recycle, so red blood cells only last somewhere around 120 days. When they die, we recycle the iron from there. So we have some circulating iron in our body, but we also have to make sure that we're taking in enough in our diet. If I'm deficient in iron then, taking a supplement is going to dramatically impact performance. We see big improvements in performance in individuals who are anemic because they're iron deficient, assuming you can absorb it. So it depends upon why you're iron deficient, right? Some people aren't deficient in their diet, but they can't absorb it for some reason from their digestive system. You shouldn't need to take it. Most people are not anemic. You can sometimes tell if people's nails look very pale or if their lips look very pale. That can be an indicator of anemia. But in our culture, the way we have, the things we eat, the food groups we have options of, you don't see anemia very often. Even in your females who menstruate very heavily, you don't often see iron deficient anemia. It is the most common mineral disorder across the planet when you look across the planet, because there's lots of populations who don't take iron as part of their daily diet. Let's see. Okay, competition meals then. So competition meals, you can, training meals, right? Same idea. Before competition, the goal is to provide stabilized blood glucose level, right? So we mentioned that idea with the drinks, but you're also looking at that with any snack or meal. So I want to have something that's relatively low in fat and low in fiber, because I don't want to decrease. I don't want to take in too much fiber and cause any kind of distress in the intestines. I don't want too much fat because it takes too long to break it down and absorb it. Right? I want to ensure my blood glucose is pretty stable, so I want to drip feed my glucose into my bloodstream. So somewhere around 200 to 300 grams of carbohydrate, obviously depending upon the individual. Don't want to try anything new. So, don't get a new protein bar or a new carbohydrate shake the day of the competition. Stick with what you know does not upset your system. Right? If you've got a long time between exercise bouts, so if I'm competing and I have 24 hours between events. So let's say I play a soccer game on Saturday and my next soccer game is Sunday, right? Then chances are your glycogen stores are going to be pretty stable because you've got plenty of time across 24 hours, right? And you wouldn't need to have a lot of carbohydrate before your competition. If though, you've got, let's say you're a sprinter, and you have round 1 at 10 o'clock in the morning, and you make the top 8, or however many are moving through, then you've got another round at 11:30. And you make the next round. Then you've got another round at 1:30. And you may have another round. So you may have to compete at your best in your event 4 or 5 times in a day. Then we've got to start being careful about these before competition snacks. And after the competition, we want to get carb stores synthesizing as quickly as possible. A drink can be very useful here. Chocolate milk can be very helpful. Right? But to fully replenish carb stores, if I've done something that's quite hard, like a soccer game, then I'm going to take some carbohydrate 15 minutes for every 4 hours. I don't think I'm going to eat something every 15 minutes for the next 4 hours. So that might be the gold standard picture. But for most people, as long as they get that carb-protein mix that we talked about, right? So if I don't have to compete again in an hour and a half's time, my carb-protein mix here could be a peanut butter sandwich. But if I have to compete again in an hour and a half, then having a lot of fiber in my post-event snack might not be a good plan. So then I might want to use chocolate milk or another carb drink. So the before-after really depends upon the length of time between events. And if what we're looking for is glycogen synthesis, so if I'm playing a long duration intermittent event on Saturday and I have another one on Sunday, so baseball guys, how often do you play back-to-back games? Saturday and Sunday, or Friday and Saturday?
Friday, Saturday.
Okay, all right, so in that case, glycogen synthesis becomes really crucial because if your muscle glycogen is low, we said performance goes down. Time to fatigue increases, right? I'm going to fatigue much quicker if my muscle glycogen is low. So on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday regime, then my goal is to replenish glycogen as quickly as I can. And in that case, that means you want to be eating within 2 hours from the end of your training or competition. Oops, sorry. So, here's synthesis if I eat within 2 hours. Here's synthesis if I wait and eat at 3 hours. Not everybody can eat something solid within 2 hours of a really hard competition. It's stressful. The actual workout may be really intense. You may have actually worked very hard. Right? Not everybody can manage something solid. So again, chocolate milk or a protein carb shake. Right? There are instances when those are a useful tool. My suggestion is don't make them your daily tool. Use them appropriately. They're expensive and they're not always necessary. Use them when you need to use them. Okay. Question? All right, so Wednesday we start group 6, which is water.